War Thunder punished me for trying to LARP as Michael Wittmann. Here I thought I'd be throwing my Tiger tank on cruise control and point-clicking entire conga lines of British teapots into hobo barrel fires with the legendary 88. My first initiation into tank combat was a complete disaster. I rolled in with my Panzer 35T, basically a German killdozer upgraded with a pop gun. I got some bozo American tanker centered in my gun sight and unleashed the full might of my 37mm cannon. You can imagine my confusion when there weren't fireworks erupting out of his hatch. The enemy tank's turret began rotating to line up on us. Friedrich screamed to load another round. I fired again, and again, and again. Finally, he exploded. Jesus! It kept happening. Shots bounced, got eaten by tracks, poked through without hitting anything. Enemy tanks refused to die unless I shot them 10 times. Time after time, I got sent back to the hangar with my Panzerkampfwagen reduced to a molten soup kitchen. Maybe this tank just sucked. Nope. The Panzer III's stubby guns couldn't penetrate, and the 50mm needle-nose cannons just zipped straight through without killing anything either. It was like trying to kill someone with a pencil. I was pure fodder for Russian T-34s and American M4 Shermans, whose explosive-filled ammo vaporized my crew, reducing their once promising lives into a fiery gravy which oozed out of every hatch, crack, and busted bolt in my tank's hull. No spawn points left. No chance of revenge on my murderer. Getting deleted and shipped back to the hangar in a closed casket. It's demoralizing. But as gutting as it felt to be me, it had to be just as intoxicating for the guy who killed me. After all, for one gamer to have fun, another has to suffer. I craved early game kills so brutally efficient. Those players wouldn't just be stripped of dignity, they would be stripped of spawn points. I needed the body high of an execution so concise, so final, that the man on the other side of the screen driving that digital tank felt the same frustration that I did. I didn't want them to just die. I wanted their name faded from existence. Holy shit! That was cool. The chase for this high led me to notice a pattern in all my defeats. My nemesis were able to put me down in a single shot. No bounces, no sitting at range ice-picking my crew and scuttling every component for 5 minutes like I had to. In the kill animation, I could see it clearly. They were rupturing my ammo storage, causing instant death. It was like they knew my tank better than I did, and used that knowledge to defeat me with a swiftness. Those damn GIs had already won before I even rolled onto the battlefield. They won it back in the hangar, clocking my tank schematics, dorking out over my Panzer's blueprints so that once I was in their crosshairs, they knew exactly where to shoot for the kill. This ain't checkers. This ain't World of Tanks with magic HP bars. This is realistic. If you got the drop and had done your homework, you would win without a second shot fired. Pack your bags, fellas. War's over. So I studied the most likely enemy tanks at my battle rating, where their armor was thick or thin, flat or angled. I studied their crews, how many meat sacks were stuffed inside, where each crew member sat, and what role they served. No sense shooting the radio man or loader first. If I knew whether the gunner sat left or right in the turret, I could snipe him first and shut down their ability to fire back. I studied their components, transmission, engine, fuel tanks, and most importantly, ammo. Whether it was stored wet, reducing the chance of a cook-off, whether the barrel or turret ring could be damaged. I studied their weaponry and mobility, what rounds they fired. Are they lobbing high explosive kegs, heat, AP, APHE, APCR, APCBC? What could penetrate my armor, at what distance and angle? Whether I could beat them to positions, if I should maintain distance, or go for a flank. Whether their whole traverse and turret rotation speed was enough to catch me. Whether they had gun stabilizers and could fire accurately on the move. I didn't just grind new, better tanks. I grinded tank IQ, I became a tank expert. Before my tracks ever tore up a quiet town's asphalt, I was already confident that whatever came rolling around the corner, I would know exactly how to destroy it. The next mission, my Panther G roared to life, and I began blitzkrieging through the bombed-out remnants of a city in search of Tommy and Ivan. Through my Zeiss TZF-12A gun sight, I caught the silhouette of an M4A3 EZ-8. No, worse, much worse, an E-2 jumbo assault tank, up-armored, sloped 101mm hull, nearly impervious 177mm thick turret face. At distance, with even slightly angled armor, it'd be one tough nut to crack. Day one me would have been panic plinking rounds into its front plate, watching them bounce off harmlessly. It would have been a nightmare, if I didn't know its two fatal flaws. If the noob angled even a little, a shot through the front side of the tracks would punch straight into his ammo rack. If facing dead front, a precise shot right through its bow gun port would kill him instantly. Got his ass. I fucking love busting apart jumbo noobs who think that they're invincible. Before I could drive down to the local beer hall to celebrate with a round of Spattenmunker Hell, I heard a roaring whistle descending from the heavens. Son of a bitch! All that prep and planning, flawlessly executed, only for an American cast revenge bomber to swoop down and pluck me like a fucking rat. Back to the hangar. What could I do? Unlike American tanks all carrying top-mounted 50 cal anti-air guns, my Panther had a pathetic MG-34 that could barely tickle a P-51's armored belly. A lumbering beast too heavy-footed to find cover when the air raid sirens began screaming. When American air power showed up, my fierce Panther turned into a lame sitting duck. I needed a new strategy. The Schwere Panzersparwagen 7.5 cm Sonderkraftfahrzeug 234-4 Panzerabwehrkanonenwagen, colloquially referred to as the Pack Puma. A heavy armored reconnaissance vehicle carrying a 75mm anti-tank cannon. As a tank, a bit of a disappointment. It doesn't have a massive gun for its tier, and with its paper-thin armor, John Moses Browning's disciples could vernichten my Wiener Schnitzel without so much as even rotating their main gun towards me. Doesn't sound too impressive, until you realize this Wunderwaffe can overtake BMWs on the Autobahn in reverse, using its fully symmetrical 8x8 drivetrain and a direction selector unit that could invert output shaft rotation. Simply put, it could get out of trouble as fast as it could get into it. A mother beautiful tank that'd make oddballs spit out his wine and cheese. The Puma could use its speed to rip deep behind enemy lines and side-strike oblivious rats scurrying out of the enemy spawn, then disappear back into the forest before the American Eagles swooped down. But in the event that I was lit up from above, or the skies became too oppressive to spawn camp with impunity, I needed an anti-air tank in my lineup that could reclaim the skies. The Flakpanzer IV Ostwind II. East wind is an understatement. Twin 37mm Flugzeuggewehrkanon 43 cannons, firing devastating Minengeschoss high explosive incendiary rounds. A nefarious rat bitch Puma with the infamous eastern wind up my armoband. I had a plan. I would punish teams that neglected their flanks, and any flyboy who entered my airspace looking to revenge bomb me, I'd no longer be the sitting duck. I'd be playing Duck Hunt. There's just one last tank modification I need to make before I blitzkrieg the border. Fuck yeah! These $20 totally not pay-to-win bushes will gilly up my recon tank, camouflaging me from the enemy tank commander's scouting binoculars until it's too late. The next game, my Puma stormed the Maginot's flank, taking extreme care not to be counter-reconned by my nemesis, another flanking American M18 Hellcat, or in this case, a rather ballsy M36. Sleuthing into the visual range of their base, I ranged my 75mm gun, refusing to blink. My eyes dried up in anticipation. The first victim arrived. I know that in ground war, tanks have temporary invincibility. Let off the shot too early, and it'll zip through them like a ghost, alerting them to my presence. For those long seconds, I patiently waited for God to turn his back on this little mouse. After cracking open a couple more cans of Coca-Cola, sure enough, they called in close air support to root my bush Wookiee ass out. Seeing their birds arriving off in the distance, I quickly J'd out before they could reap the satisfaction of revenge bombing my tank, and hopped into my Ostwind. I'd practiced until I had an instinctual mind-body connection with the twin Flak 44 cannons. Knowing my shot's velocity and the F4U1's dive speed and turning radius, I could derive a proper lead distance. A predator in the shadows. Again, I patiently waited until they became ensnared in my effective range and committed to their line on my friendly tanks. I wasn't done. Even after 4 plane kills, I hadn't gotten my fill of vengeance yet. With their air power erased and their spawn point economy severely crippled, the skies clearing and the tides of the war reversing, I J'd out once again. This time, I climbed into the cockpit of Germany's Soaring Eagle and dive-bombed the shambling remnants of their ground force with 1,000-kilogram bombs. Last, the full satisfaction of reaping victory in the tormentation of enemy players through schematical research conjuncted by a well-planned coordination of combined warfare. First, by graying out the first and second waves of noobs with my 75mm cannon. Secondly, by denying their only shot at revenge by preemptively anticipating their CAS and shooting down their high spawn point cost planes. And finally, by dropping 1,000-kilogram bombs on the few remaining veteran players as they emerged from their base to crush what was left of their morale, to cook Tommy's replacements in those tracked boxes that they once called home. I blitz-coomed. It was that successful battle that taught me that War Thunder isn't about speed or reflexes. First-person shooter muscle memory doesn't carry over. Bunny hopping, crouch sliding, 180 flick shot skizzing has no home here. If I wanted to survive, if I wanted enemy players to snap keyboards in half, I had to slow down and work the battlefield like a chessboard, built from an intimate understanding of each piece's capabilities. War Thunder taught me that what matters more than what's in your garage is knowledge.